The hallway was supposed to be just another hallway, bright lights, rusted lockers, the usual mix of footsteps and morning chatter. But that morning, something felt different. A tension hung in the air, sharp enough to make anyone pause. And at the center of it all was a moment no one could have predicted. It began with the new girl, the one who had walked in so quietly that half the school didn't even notice her arrival. She kept her eyes down, clutching her books tightly to her chest as she tried to slide through the crowd unnoticed. But bullies always notice the ones who don't fight back. They notice the outsiders, the quiet ones, the ones who look like they're just trying to survive the day. And today, she was their target. The tallest boy in the group stepped directly into her path, forcing her to stop. The entire hallway seemed to turn into a stage, and she became the unwilling performer. His friends stood behind him, laughing, whispering, nudging one another as if this was all part of their morning entertainment ritual. Phones were raised. Smirks spread. The buzz of conversation faded as more students slowed down to watch. "Where do you think you're going?" the leader sneered. She didn't answer. Her hands trembled around her books. She only wanted to get to class. She only wanted to disappear. But the bullies didn't let her. One of them knocked a book from her hands. Another kicked it farther down the hall. A third leaned in close, mocking her accent, her clothes, her silence, anything he could use to make her feel smaller. No teacher in sight. No friend stepping in. Just a circle tightening around a girl who wished she could vanish into thin air. And then, just when the laughter grew loudest and her fear hit its peak, the atmosphere shifted. It felt like the hallway exhaled. Students near the end of the corridor stepped aside, confused at first, then startled. Someone was walking toward the scene with a calmness that didn't match the chaos. A presence that instantly demanded attention. Sneakers slowed. Whispers spread. Heads turned. And when the bullies finally looked up, they froze. Because the man approaching them wasn't just another teacher. Wasn't a parent. Wasn't someone who'd be intimidated. It was Jason Statham. And everything was about to change. Jason Statham didn't step in with dramatic music or a heroic entrance. He didn't raise his voice or shove anyone aside. He simply walked, steady, calm, and focused, like a man who had seen enough of life to know when something wasn't right. But the bullies didn't know that. Not yet. The leader of the group squinted, confused to see an adult in a place where no adult ever seemed to show up. Sir, this is a student area," he muttered, shifting awkwardly. He tried to sound tough, but there was a tremor in his voice, a hesitation that betrayed him. Jason didn't look at him first. Instead, he knelt slowly and picked up the girl's scattered books. His movements were deliberate, gentle, as if he were handling something fragile that deserved care. The hallway grew quieter. Students leaned in. No one dared to speak. "Here you go," Jason said softly, handing the books back to her. She looked up, startled. Thank you," she whispered, but her hands shook so badly she could hardly hold them. Jason gave her a reassuring nod before he finally stood and faced the bullies. "What's happening here?" he asked, not angrily, not accusingly, but in a calm, controlled tone that felt far more dangerous. The leader swallowed. "Nothing. We were just messing around." Jason raised an eyebrow. "Messing around, huh? Looks more like you were backing someone into a corner." The hallway felt absolutely silent. Bullies thrive on two things, an audience and fear. Jason had just taken both away. A few students in the background whispered to each other. "Is that Jason Statham? No way, what's he doing here? That guy's in like every action movie ever." But the bullies still didn't recognize him. Or maybe they were too deep in their egos to care. "Listen, man," one of them said, stepping forward with fake courage. "This is none of your business. She's new. She needs to learn how things work here." Jason tilted his head slightly, almost amused. "Oh, and you're the teacher now." A ripple of laughter passed through the crowd. The leader's face reddened. Trying to regain control, he took another step forward. "Look, old man." Jason's expression changed. Just a flicker, barely noticeable, but enough to make the hallway tighten with tension. "Old man." Jason echoed calmly. "Son, I've been in situations you can't even imagine. And I promise you, age is not the thing you should be concerned about." A few students gasped. The bullies glanced around, suddenly aware that everyone was watching. No one was laughing with them anymore. No one was supporting them. Their power was slipping. Jason looked down at the girl again. "Are you all right?" he asked. She shook her head, tears threatening to spill. They pushed me. They took my things. That was enough. Jason turned back to the group, and this time, there was steel in his gaze. You pushed her. Silence. You made her cry? More silence. You think that makes you strong? No one answered. The hallway felt like it was holding its breath. Jason took one step closer, not threatening, but firm. Strength isn't hurting people who can't defend themselves. Strength is using what you have to protect, not destroy. But maybe no one ever taught you that. The leader tried to maintain his facade. You don't know anything about us. Jason nodded slowly. You're right. I don't. But I know exactly what it looks like when someone is being bullied. And I know how to stop it. The group shifted uncomfortably. They were losing. Not physically, but mentally. And that was worse. Jason crossed his arms. So tell me, do we need to involve the school? Or do you want to end this right now and walk away like decent human beings? One of the boys whispered, Dude, let's just go. But the leader, stubborn and embarrassed, shook his head. He can't tell us what to do. Jason sighed, almost disappointed. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to tell you what's right. The tension started to boil when one of the bullies shoved the girl again, desperate to show he wasn't afraid. The students gasped. Jason didn't move for a long moment. He just stared at the boy who pushed her, calm, unblinking, deadly still. Then he stepped forward slowly. Listen carefully, Jason said, voice low but carrying through the hallway. If you touch her again, if you even think about it, you'll answer to me. Not as an actor, not as a celebrity, as a man who won't tolerate cruelty. Still, the bullies hesitated. Their bravado was draining, but pride kept them standing where they were. Jason continued, You have a chance right now to stop. To fix this. To be better than this moment. And trust me, the whole school is watching. The students nodded. Phones were recording. This was no longer a hallway incident. This was a public reckoning. Engagement break. Have you ever seen a bully act tough until someone strong stepped in? Comment where you're watching from. Which country, which city. The bullies finally looked at each other, uncertainty spreading across their faces. But the situation wasn't over. Not yet. Because the next moment, one of the students in the back shouted loud enough for everyone to hear. Wait, that's Jason Statham. And everything started to unravel. The moment someone shouted Jason Statham's name, the entire hallway shifted. Heads whipped around. Students who had been only half interested were suddenly alert, eyes widening, phones rising higher for a clearer view. Is him? No way. Why would he be at our school? Bro, that's literally Jason Statham. The murmurs spread like wildfire, traveling from one end of the hallway to the other. Even students who hadn't seen the bullying rushed over, trying to squeeze into the crowd. Within seconds, a simple school hallway argument had exploded into something far bigger. But the bullies, especially the leader, weren't ready to lose control so easily. Jason Statham, the leader scoffed, forcing a laugh. Come on, that's just some random old dude. Some of the boys behind him nodded, but uneasily. Their eyes said something different. They recognized the familiar face, the calm but dangerous posture, the sharp expression they had seen in countless movies. Jason didn't react to the comment. He didn't need to. He stood there with that same steady presence. Arms relaxed but ready, gaze firm but not threatening. The kind of presence that made people straighten up just by being near him. The new girl stood behind him now, almost instinctively drawn toward his protection. Even though she tried to stay quiet, her breaths were shaky, uneven. Jason glanced at her briefly. You're safe, he said gently. She nodded, though her eyes still flickered with fear. The leader, desperate to regain the audience's attention, stepped forward again. Look, I don't care who you think you are. You're in my school, and you don't tell me what to do. Jason looked at him for a long moment, calm, observant, almost pitying. Your school, he repeated softly. Interesting choice of words. What's that supposed to mean? The boy snapped. Jason's voice remained level. It means you've mistaken fear for respect. These students aren't following you because they admire you. They follow because they don't want to be the next target. A few students in the crowd lowered their heads, confirming Jason's words without speaking. The leader clenched his jaw. Man, you think you know everything. Jason shook his head. No, but I know a bully when I see one. The boy's face reddened. Anger, embarrassment, panic, all swirling at once. He pushed Jason's shoulder lightly, not enough to start a fight, but enough to show he wasn't backing down. Students gasped loudly. Jason didn't move an inch. You done? He asked quietly. But the leader wasn't done. He couldn't be. In front of the entire school, with cameras watching, pride burning hotter than sense, he had to keep pushing. This is getting boring, he sneered. Why don't you leave before things get worse for you? Jason replied. The only thing getting worse is your judgment. The boy scoffed, but his voice cracked. You're not scary. Jason stepped closer, just one step, but it felt like a wall closing in. The hallway seemed to shrink around them. I'm not here to scare you, Jason said. I'm here to stop you. Silence once again rippled through the crowd. Even those who usually cheered for conflict were holding their breath. The new girl whispered behind him, Please, just leave it. They'll hurt you. Jason turned to her, and for a moment, his expression softened. I'm not leaving you alone with them. Her eyes filled with tears. No one had ever said that to her before. No one had ever stood for her, not at her old school, not even on her first day here. But this stranger, this man she only knew from movie posters, was standing between her and her nightmares. The leader saw her emotional moment and tried to mock it. Oh look, she's crying again, he said. What a baby. Jason's eyes sharpened, not with rage, but with disappointment that cut far deeper. You really don't know when to stop, he said quietly. The leader hesitated. For the first time, real fear flickered in his eyes. Because Jason wasn't yelling. He wasn't threatening. He wasn't moving aggressively. He was simply standing there, unshaken, unmovable. And that scared the bully more than any punch ever could. One of his friends whispered, Dude, maybe we should walk away. But the leader refused. His voice trembled, but he tried one last time to hold control. I'm not scared of you, he said. Jason nodded slowly. You should be scared of what you're becoming. The boy blinked. Jason continued. A person who hurts others because he thinks it makes him strong. That's someone who lost himself a long time ago. The words landed heavier than any fist. The leader's face twisted, anger mixing with something he didn't understand, shame. Students in the crowd watched in total silence. Phones recorded. Hearts pounded. Everyone could feel something building, something about to break. But Jason wasn't done yet. He held the leader's gaze and said, This ends now. The bully tried one last time to hold his ground, but his voice failed him. You can't tell me. Then the girl behind Jason spoke softly, gathering the tiniest bit of courage. Please stop. Her voice, faint and trembling, carried through the hallway with surprising strength. The bullies flinched. Jason turned slightly, just enough to reassure her with a look. Then he faced the group again. You heard her, he said. Enough. The tension was unbearable. The hallway had gone silent enough to hear a pin drop. Engagement break, as requested. Should Jason walk them to the principal's office or teach them a lesson right here? What would you do? Drop your answer in the comments. But before anyone could react, a voice from the back shouted, The principal's coming. The crowd split. Students gasped. The bullies went pale. And suddenly, everything was about to take a much more serious turn. The shout, The principal's coming, hit the hallway like a shockwave. Students scrambled away from the scene, forming a wide circle as if preparing for some grand showdown. Even the boldest kids suddenly straightened their posture, pretending to be innocent bystanders instead of eager spectators. The bullies stiffened, eyes darting toward the far end of the hallway where Principal Harris was marching forward with fast, heavy steps. She wasn't the type to tolerate chaos. Every student in the school knew that. Strict, sharp-eyed, and always 2 steps ahead of trouble, she was the kind of principal who could silence a room just by clearing her throat. The leader of the bullies gulped hard. Crap, she's gonna kill us, one of his friends muttered. Shut up, the leader snapped back, but he was trembling now, and everyone could see it. Jason remained exactly where he was, calm, unbothered, steady as a wall. The new girl stayed close to him, her shoulders still hunched, but her fear eased just enough knowing he hadn't stepped away. Principal Harris finally reached them. What is going on here? She demanded, her voice slicing through the silence. No one answered. Dozens of students stood frozen. A few glanced at Jason nervously, others at the bullies. Phones were tucked away quickly, though the recording had already spread across multiple devices. The principal's eyes swept over the group, narrowing when she saw the scattered books on the floor, the tense body language, the obvious guilt painted across the bullies' faces. Someone start talking, she ordered. The leader opened his mouth, probably to lie, But Jason stepped forward first. These boys were harassing her, he said, voice low but firm, pointing gently toward the new girl. The principal turned to Jason. And you are? Before Jason could answer, a student whispered loudly. That's Jason Statham. Another whispered. No, seriously, it's him. The principal blinked, confused. Jason who? Then a teacher who had just arrived gasped. Oh my goodness, Principal Harris, that is Jason Statham. The actor. The action star. Everything. The hallway erupted into murmurs again. Jason gave a small nod, as if embarrassed by the attention. I'm just here visiting, he said quietly. Didn't expect to see something like this. The principal's jaw dropped. She stared between him and the bullies, trying to process the bizarre reality unfolding in her hallway. You're Jason Statham, she repeated, almost to herself. As in, the Jason Statham? He gave a polite smile. So they keep telling me. The students laughed softly, tension breaking for a moment. But not for the bullies. Their faces turned ghost white as the reality settled in. They didn't just bully a new girl. They didn't just get caught by the principal. They did it all in front of one of the most famous action stars in the world. Principal Harris adjusted her glasses sharply. Is this true? She asked the leader. Were you harassing this student? The boy stammered. And no, ma'am. We were just talking. Jason's voice cut through the lie. Talking doesn't usually involve shoving someone and knocking their books across the floor. The boy tensed. His friends stared at their shoes. The principal exhaled slowly, disappointment sinking into her features. I've warned you boys before. Bullying is unacceptable. And now this. She shook her head angrily. Jason stepped in again. Look, he said gently. I don't want this to become a bigger issue than it is. I just want her to feel safe. The principal turned to the girl. Sweetheart, did they hurt you? The girl hesitated, her voice tremoring. They pushed me, and they wouldn't let me go to class. Her eyes filled again, but this time, she wasn't alone. Principal Harris softened slightly. I'm so sorry this happened. No one should ever feel unsafe in this school. Ever. The leader finally cracked under the pressure. Ma'am, I swear we weren't trying to. Enough. The principal cut him off sharply. You and I will talk in my office. All of you. The boys groaned under their breath, dread consuming them. But then something unexpected happened. A teacher pushed through the crowd, a young English teacher, wide-eyed, holding her phone. Principal? This video is already online, and it's blowing up. The principal's head snapped toward her. What video? The teacher turned the screen around. There, on the display, was the clip of Jason Statham stepping between the bullies and the new girl, already at 50,000 views and climbing by the second. The bullies' expressions collapsed into pure horror. Students whispered, "This is crazy. He's going viral. He's done for. Jason Statham coming to our school? Imagine." Principal Harris massaged her temples. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Jason didn't look thrilled either. I didn't want this to become a spectacle, he muttered. The principal sighed. I understand. But at least this gives me clear evidence. The bullies had no words left. Their bravado had evaporated. Jason turned back to the girl. Do you want to go to class? I'll walk with you, he said kindly. She nodded, relief washing over her face. The students watched in awe as Jason Statham, world-famous action star, guided her gently through the hallway, parting the crowd like water. Behind them, the bullies stood frozen, knowing their world was about to fall apart. And this was only the beginning. The hallway was still buzzing with whispers as Jason guided the new girl away from the center of the chaos. Students parted respectfully, some still recording, others whispering excitedly into their phones. The girl stayed close to him, her grip tight on her books as if afraid they'd be snatched away again. Principal Harris led the bullies toward her office, but before they disappeared around the corner, Jason stopped walking. Hold on a moment, he said quietly. The principal turned. The bullies froze. The entire hallway fell silent again. Jason let go of the girl's books gently and handed them back to her. Wait for me just a second, he whispered. She nodded, wiping a tear from her cheek. Jason stepped toward the bullies, slow, controlled, radiating an aura that made even the bravest students instinctively move aside. The leader swallowed hard. Why? Why are you coming here again? Jason ignored the fear in his voice and looked at the principal instead. Before they go to your office, I need to say something, he said. Principal Harris raised an eyebrow. All right. but keep it appropriate." Jason nodded once. Then he stood directly in front of the boys, close enough for them to feel the weight of his presence, but far enough that they couldn't accuse him of intimidation. He crossed his arms slowly. "You probably think you're tough," Jason began, his voice calm and low, the kind that made people listen whether they wanted to or not. "You think pushing someone around makes you powerful, that making someone cry gives you control." None of the bullies responded. They didn't dare. "But let me tell you something important," Jason continued. "You didn't show strength today. You showed fear." The leader frowned. "Fear? Of what?" Jason looked directly into his eyes. "Of yourself. Of your insecurities. Only someone afraid on the inside feels the need to tear others down on the outside." Students around them nodded silently, soaking in every word. The leader looked away, jaw tightening. Jason stepped closer, but not in aggression. "In truth, my job, on screen, is to fight bad guys. But my job as a human being is to stand up for people who don't have a voice. People like her." He gestured toward the new girl behind him. The leader shifted uncomfortably, struggling to keep eye contact. "You think picking on a quiet girl makes you powerful," Jason said. "But real power is being able to lift someone up, not knock them down. Real strength is using your influence to help someone, not hurt them." His voice echoed through the hallway, each word hitting harder than the last. The boy's face flushed red. Anger, shame, confusion, all tangled together. Jason continued. "Do you know what I see when I look at you? Not a villain, not a monster. I see a kid who has no idea who he is yet, so he pretends to be someone else." The leader blinked rapidly. It was the first time anyone had said anything like that to him. Jason's tone softened, but only slightly. "The world is full of people who act tough because they think it'll hide their pain. But that's not who you want to grow up to be." The crowd murmured again, the hallway alive with emotion. One of the other bullies whispered, "He's right." Jason turned his head slightly. "And you," he said to the second boy, "you followed him because you didn't want to be his target either. That doesn't make you bad. It makes you scared, but you're old enough to choose better friends." The boy looked down at his shoes, ashamed. Lastly, Jason looked at the third boy, the smallest of the three, the one who looked like he regretted everything. "And you knew this was wrong from the start. You don't have to be part of something just because everyone else is. Courage starts with one choice." The smaller boy nodded shakily. Jason stepped back, addressing all three at once. "What you did today hurt someone who did nothing to you. That should matter to you. I don't care if I'm an actor or a stranger. I care that you learned something from this moment." He paused, letting the weight sink in. "You can walk out of this school today the same kids who harass others, or you can grow up into young men who protect people instead." The leader finally found his voice. "Why do you even care? You don't know us." Jason raised his chin slightly. "Because I used to be you." The hallway froze. Jason continued quietly. "When I was young, I knew people who were bullied, and sometimes I didn't do enough. I learned from those mistakes. I refused to let them repeat in front of me." The bullies exchanged stunned glances. Jason looked at all three boys firmly. "If you want to be strong, start by apologizing to her. Not because you're forced to, but because it's the right thing to do." The leader's throat bobbed. His pride was battling his conscience. His friends stared at him, waiting to see what he would do. Jason stepped aside but kept his eyes on them. "Go on." The hallway was silent. 1 second passed. Then another. Then, the smallest bully stepped forward first. I'm sorry," he said, voice trembling. "For everything." The second boy followed. "Yeah, we're sorry. We shouldn't have done that." All eyes turned to the leader. His fists tightened. His breath shook. But slowly, painfully, he looked at the girl. "I'm sorry," he muttered. The principal nodded approvingly. Jason didn't smile, but his expression softened. The girl whispered, "Thank you." Principal Harris gestured sharply. "All right, my office. Now." The boys followed her, quieter than they'd ever been. Jason exhaled, relieved yet solemn. The girl turned to him. Why did you do all that for me?" Jason gave her a gentle smile. "Because everyone deserves someone in their corner." And with that, he walked her toward her classroom as the entire hallway watched in awe. As Jason walked the new girl toward her classroom, the hallway slowly came back to life. Students whispered, exchanged shocked looks, and replayed the videos they had just taken. The tension was fading, replaced by an electric buzz of disbelief. "I still can't believe he's here. Dude, I'm shaking." He just humbled those bullies like a movie scene. Jason opened the door to her classroom, but before she stepped inside, she hesitated. Do you have to leave?" she asked softly. Jason crouched slightly to meet her eye level, his expression gentle. "You're safe now. I promise. And if anything else happens, I'm not far." She nodded, her shoulders relaxing for the first time since the morning began. Just then, a teacher rushed down the hallway toward them. A younger man in a blue shirt, breathless. "Mr. Statham." "Sir." Wow. The whole school is talking about what you did." Jason gave him a polite but tired smile. "I didn't do anything special. I just didn't want to stand there and watch someone get hurt." But the teacher shook his head. "It was special. That girl has been struggling since she transferred. Today could have gone much worse without you." Before Jason could respond, a second teacher appeared, an older woman clutching a tablet. "Mr. Statham," she said, eyes wide. "The video, it's everywhere already." Jason sighed quietly. "How bad is it?" "Bad or good depends on perspective," she replied. "But it's spreading. Fast." She turned the tablet around. A clip showed Jason stepping between the bullies and the girl. His calm voice, his steady posture, his protective stance, it was all there. In the corner of the screen were the numbers. 1.2 million views. 45 minutes after upload. Jason closed his eyes briefly. He never sought attention. He didn't want cameras or headlines. This was supposed to be a quiet visit, something private, meaningful. The teacher continued. "Parents are sharing it. Kids from other schools are reposting it. Even local news pages picked it up already." Jason exhaled. That was quick. "Welcome to the internet," the teacher said dryly. Suddenly, the principal's voice echoed from behind. "Mr. Statham." Jason turned to see Principal Harris approaching, followed by a police officer, the school's assigned safety officer. The bullies were nowhere in sight. They had been taken to the office earlier. The officer extended a respectful hand. "Sir, I heard what happened. I'd like to say thank you. Not everyone would step in the way you did." Jason shook his hand. "Anyone should." Principal Harris nodded. "True. But most people don't." She cleared her throat. The boys admitted everything. They're facing disciplinary action, serious action. Suspension is the minimum. Jason's expression was unreadable, but his voice was steady. "I don't want their lives ruined. I just want them to learn something." Principal Harris softened. "Your words seem to reach them, especially the leader. He's quieter than I've ever seen him." Jason nodded once. "Good. Sometimes the right moment wakes people up." The officer chimed in. "You're a role model to these kids. Even the ones who mess up. They know your face. They know your movies. When you speak, they listen." Jason didn't smile. Instead, he glanced back toward the hallway where the girl had gone. "I just want kids like her to feel safe." The principal gave a warm, genuine nod. "She will. Especially after today." Just then, a thundering wave of footsteps echoed, students coming from lunch, from classes, from every corner of the school. A group of younger students spotted Jason first. "Oh my God, it's really him." "Jason, can I take a picture?" Sir, thank you for helping her." They gathered around him like bees to a flower, wide-eyed, excited, grateful. Jason raised his hands, chuckling softly. All right, everybody give each other space." But they didn't leave. They stood in awe, some nervous, some emotional, all incredibly inspired. One small boy spoke up. "My sister gets bullied sometimes. I wish someone like you was there." Jason knelt down to him. "You can be that someone," he said. "You don't need my face or my movies. You just need courage." The boy's eyes lit up. Behind them, a new voice spoke, shaky but determined. It was the new girl. She had quietly stepped back out of class. Her eyes were still red, but she no longer looked small or invisible. "Jason," she said softly. He turned. "Yeah." She swallowed. I told my teacher what happened. She said I should tell you thank you again." Jason smiled gently. "You don't need to thank me. You did the hard part." "I didn't do anything," she whispered. "Yes, you did," Jason replied. "You stood there. You kept going. That takes strength." She looked at the ground, touched. The hallway filled with emotion so thick you could almost feel it. The bullies were gone. The fear was gone. And a school that once ignored the quiet girl now saw her clearly. Engagement break. Do you think bullies can truly change if someone confronts them the right way? Comment yes or no. Just then, a staff member ran up holding her phone. "Jason, you need to see this." He looked down. The video had hit 5 million views. Major news outlets were calling. Celebrities were reposting it. The entire internet had exploded. Jason looked around at the students, the teachers, the girl, and realized nothing about today was going to stay small. The school courtyard was buzzing like a beehive by the time Jason stepped outside. The sun had begun dipping low, casting long shadows over the pavement where hundreds of students had gathered, some recording, some whispering, some simply staring at him with a mix of awe and gratitude. Jason paused, feeling the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. He had lived through dangerous missions, tense film sets, and high-pressure interviews. But this was different. This was raw, real, human. A teacher approached him. The district office is calling. News channels too. They want statements. Jason shook his head. Not today. Today isn't about the media. He scanned the crowd until he spotted the girl again, standing a few steps away, clutching her backpack. She looked different now. Not fully confident, but not invisible anymore. A spark had lit inside her, small but undeniable. Jason walked toward her, and the entire courtyard went silent. "You doing all right?" he asked. She nodded. "Yeah, because of you." Jason gently corrected her. "Because you kept going. Because you didn't give up." Tears lingered in her eyes, but her chin stayed steady. "I was scared." He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Everyone's scared. Courage isn't about being fearless. It's about stepping forward anyway." In that instant, something shifted. The students watching weren't just looking at a celebrity. They were absorbing a lesson none of their textbooks could ever teach. Suddenly, the school doors opened behind them. The bullies, 3 boys who had terrorized the hallways for weeks, were escorted out by the vice principal. Their shoulders were slumped, their faces pale, their confidence shattered. They stopped in front of Jason. The leader swallowed hard before speaking. "Sir, I'm sorry," he muttered, voice cracking. "We thought we were being funny." "We weren't." Jason looked him square in the eyes. The courtyard held its breath. "You weren't being funny," Jason said calmly. "You were hurting someone. Someone who did nothing to you." The boy's eyes drifted downward. "We know. We're going to therapy and mandatory sessions. And suspension. We deserve it." Jason nodded. "Consequences matter. But what matters more is what you do next." The boy wiped a tear he didn't expect to shed. "I want to change." "Really? Good," Jason said. "Then start by apologizing to the person who felt your cruelty." The bully turned toward the girl. His voice trembled. "I'm sorry. Truly. I shouldn't have done any of it." The girl hesitated, then gave a tiny nod. "Thank you," she whispered. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a beginning. And beginnings are powerful. The courtyard felt lighter, like everyone had exhaled at the same time. Moments later, Principal Harris stepped forward. "Mr. Statham, before you go, would you like to say something to the students?" Jason looked at the crowd. Hundreds of young faces waiting for a message they would remember far longer than any action scene. He stepped onto a bench, raised his voice just enough, and spoke. "Strength isn't about fists. Strength isn't about fear. Real strength is standing up when something is wrong, and standing with someone who needs you." The students listened in complete silence. "If you ever see someone alone," he continued, "be the person who walks toward them, not the one who laughs from far away. One small choice can change someone's whole world." He glanced at the girl. "And sometimes they can save them." A powerful wave of emotion swept through the courtyard. Chills, tears, quiet sniffles. Jason stepped down, gave the girl one last reassuring look, and began walking toward the exit. Students parted for him like a tide, watching him leave with respect few adults ever earned from them. The girl called out softly, "Jason." He turned. "Thank you for seeing me." Jason gave her a warm smile. Never let anyone make you feel invisible again. And with that, he walked away. No boasting, no interviews, no cameras. Just a man who chose courage over silence. The video kept climbing. The story kept spreading. But the greatest change didn't happen online. It happened inside a school where, for the first time, everyone understood. Being kind is powerful. Being brave is louder than fear. And standing up can change everything.